Which Side Podcast is a proud member of the Which Side Media Collective.
This week's episode is brought to us by Lisa Drapkin and New York City Books Through Bars. New York City Books Through Bars is an all-volunteer-run collective. They send free books to hundreds of people in prison every month. To learn more, go to booksthroughbarsnyc.org.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And Books Through Bars, amazing organization. Make sure you check them out. And as soon as I figure out this sewing thing this week, you got a bandana coming your way.
All right.
This is episode 153.
Yeah, we have Kim Socha on again.
She has a bunch of new stuff going on, bunch of legal things going on, bunch of activism. She's been at the forefront of a lot of the Cecil protests. Check it out. And if you haven't yet, check out her previous episode. We'll put it in the show notes for you. Just amazing person. I love talking to her. Hey, Jordan, what news and events do we have going on this week?
Well, stay tuned to the end of the episode. Kim talks about some of the upcoming events in her area. Also, Sea Shepherd's still looking for supplies. They have a wish list. I'll post that. And Joseph, who is on house arrest, also has a wish list, so I have that up as well.
Check all of those out. And if you buy something through the wish list, we'll get a kickback for it. So you're helping them and us. So it's a double whammy.
Definitely.
For the slingshot this week, October 16th, 1859, John Brown attacks the Harper's Ferry ammunition depot. I like it when they're not super sad.
Yeah.
If you like these little tidbits of history, we pull them out of the Slingshot Personal Organizer. Get one right now. The 2016 ones are available at a local info shop or an online info shop like AK Press.
I still need to get mine.
Me too. I sincerely hope you enjoy this episode.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side? Which side are you on? 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 Which side are you on?
So, well, thank you so much for being on again.
Thanks for having me again.
So, what has happened since you were last on?
Wow, what's happened? Things have been kind of status quo. I've gotten into some legal issues, some of which I can talk about, some of which I can't talk about. I'm on sabbatical from my job, taking classes to become an ESL, to get a certificate in teaching English as a second language. And I've just been continuing on with my activism, most especially a campaign against a local fur store that's been in Minneapolis for about 70 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I can't believe people still go in there. It shocks me that they stay in business. So that's kind of been my life. The one exciting thing is I'll be speaking at the New Zealand Skeptics Conference in November. So
That's amazing.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I was really excited to be asked because a lot of times, for example, I spoke at the National Animal Rights Conference this summer, and I spoke on the last day at the very last possible session. I knew I was going to be put there. And almost every single person who attended was a vegan atheist. So, and that's great. I love talking to like-minded people. But this is an opportunity, besides some local talks that I've given, to actually speak to a community of skeptics and bring that message to the secular community, which I think, there's this really interesting, I don't know what to call it, just issue that many people are overwhelmingly atheist in the animal rights movement. So I feel like there's got to be a connection. And I kind of talk about it in my book, Animal Liberation and Atheism. So I'm wondering if the secular community isn't prime territory for spreading the good word of animal liberation. We'll see how people react.
Have you ever had like a hard time with the secular community? I feel like a lot of times they are critical thinkers when it comes to everything except for veganism.
Yeah, they fall into like a lot of fallacies when it comes to.
Oh yeah, everything, all the bad arguments that you hear from people who have a belief system or whatnot show up in the secular community. Again, the talks I've given to secular communities have been only in Minnesota, and people. There's a thing called Minnesota Nice, which you may or may not have heard of. And it basically doesn't really mean that Minnesotans are super nice. It's that they're just, which I think is a lot of people, they're nice to your face, but they aren't really thinking nice things or they're talking behind your back. So, so the talks I've given have been overwhelmingly positive, I thought. One person wrote a review for the Minnesota Atheist newsletter, which really just distorted the talk that I gave and was kind of blustery. And I just I was asked if I wanted to write a response, and just like, it wasn't even worth it, because I feel like anyone who attended the talk, would have, who is a little bit more open-minded might have a different perception. And he was like questioning basic things like, she said the meat and dairy industry have an effect, determine what the government tells us we should eat. Almost like I was a mad woman for even mentioning something which I think no one even denies. It's kind of a given that the big lobbying groups from the meat and dairy industry have a major impact on what shows up on like school lunch menus and things like that. So
it's one of those things the government doesn't even try to hide.
No, not at all. I mean, yeah, so it's just kind of like, I'm tired. I don't want to fight this person. I wrote a book, read the book. I wrote a book about it, so that was a little bit of hostility, and I'm really curious about what to expect in New Zealand. It's looking at the roster. It's a lot of biologists and philosophers and things of that nature. I believe I'm one of just maybe a few people who are bringing an animal liberation message. So it should be quite a scene. I'm looking forward to it. And to going to New Zealand. I've never been to New Zealand, so.
Yeah, that's going to be amazing. That's one place I really want to go.
We have several listeners out there, most specifically John.
Usual John. Possibly.
Yeah, the usual John. I'm sure he'll be excited to hear that you're going.
Yes, it's in Christchurch. I don't know exactly where the conference is. I know it's in Christchurch, but I am giving a talk when I'm there at Canterbury University as well. So if any of your listeners are around, check it out. Check out the university webpage. Look for me.
We actually have a surprising amount of listeners in that region. Yeah.
It's a very large chunk.
Yeah.
It's good. I hope it's a willing audience ready to hear the truth.
do you ever have a hard time, like you were saying when you were talking like the AR conference? I've never gone to the AR conference only because I can never justify forking out the money and taking the time off work to travel across the country for it.
Yeah.
Is it actually worth it to go and attend it?
No. I went. I think I went 1 year. I co-author or I co-edited a book with Sarah Jane Blum, who's also been on your show,
Mm-hmm.
and we said, okay, let's go out there. We'll get a table and kind of use it as an avenue to get the word out about the book. And I really didn't get a chance to see any of the talks. I snuck in because I couldn't afford to go halvesies for a table and also attend the conference.
Yeah.
And I snuck into a debate between Bruce Friedrich and Gary Francione. And it was interesting, but not really that original. So this year, it was really kind of part of the reason I went is I don't think I would have been accepted if it wasn't that a very small but insistent group of people wrote to the organizers. I'm not saying demanding, but really asking that this perspective be brought to the conference,
Mm-hmm.
which is again why in the beginning I said I knew when I was before I knew the schedule and I was arranging my flight info, I made sure I got the last flight out on Sunday because I absolutely just knew that I was going to be put last. Because it's a new topic, and I think they had trouble pairing me. So when they put people, because I'm not going to be a keynote, so when they think about accepting, they want to say, well, can we put this person on a panel with someone else? And they were John Camp from Vegan Outreach actually did the panel with me, and he did a really great job because he's atheist. But it was, he had to, of course, begin his talk by saying, now Vegan Outreach is open to all different kinds of perspectives. So, but it was really good to present with him. And the reason I say no, is just, it's very expensive. I gave my feedback to them, like, stop giving out all the swag. The bags and the little booklets, it just seems like a waste of money, and it's just creating new products for consumption. And it's, they do pack the conference. There's a lot, you won't be bored,
Mm-hmm.
assuming you don't get bored listening to the same people say the same thing over and over again. So there's a lot going on, but as far as if you have money to throw away, or if you have a lot, I won't say throw away, if you have a lot of funny money, then definitely go. If finances are an issue, then maybe.
Farm's the one who organizes it, right?
Yes.
So, at least it's, going to farm, I guess, if you think about it that way.
Yeah, you could say it's going to a good cause, I suppose.
So when you went with your table, was the table worth it?
Yeah, I think we, no book that I ever take part in as a main author, contributor, editor is ever, it's not worth it financially.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in, I don't make money off of my writing. And for that particular book, because it was written by activists in the Twin Cities, I donated it to a local, any royalties go to a local animal rights group. So it's hard to make that call if having the table did much to help. We sold some books. I don't even remember how many, but we sold some books. I met some interesting people. Actually, one of the reasons to go is one of the things I mentioned in the intro to that book, Confronting Animal Exploitation, is before I even went, I would hear people complain about the National AR Conference. Oh, it's the same people. It's boring. It's this, it's that. And I said, well, why do you go? And they said it's because of the hallway conversations that you have with activists around the country. And that, I would say, would be a reason to go. I got the most out of just talking to people who weren't speakers at the conference. So
have you ever been to the Resistance Ecology?
No, and I wanted to go, and I probably would have this summer, but I was putting my money towards going to Washington. So, but I would love. Have you guys been there?
Not yet.
No, and we're kind of like debating what to do next year, and it's all the you know, the funds and getting time off and getting, you know, like where do we want to travel to the most.
That's one that I really want to go to,
and
though.
yeah, we're definitely leaning towards resistance ecology.
Yeah, that I think I might have gone, especially because I'm so supportive and of the No New Animal Lab campaign, and I believe they were speaking there. I just, in my little corner of the Midwest, I try to support them as much as possible. So
yeah, they're on tour right now, actually.
Yeah, and they just had the big march this week.
And they had a big call-in yesterday as well.
Oh yeah, I made my calls.
Yeah, we're gonna have somebody on shortly. I think in the next week or so. So that'll be really good.
Oh, cool! Yeah, they're great. I love what they're doing. It gives me hope that this movement can be redeemed from the vegan consumerism that I feel like it's falling into. Like,
that's what I hear coming out of the resistance ecology, though, is like you're talking about how people like the hallway conversations. What I've been hearing is that all conversations coming out of there that way, not just the hallway ones. It's the entire conference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a conference that I would love to just attend. Being a speaker at a conference, it's just, it's distracting. I just want to go to a conference and just like take it all in.
Yeah.
Rather than be worried is my technology going to work and am I going to look silly or say something silly?
I've been debating on approaching them to see if we could do like a live show, but I don't know if there would be enough interest in that.
Oh, you mean from the organizers?
Yeah.
I would definitely give it a shot. Who doesn't want to be heard on Which Side Podcast?
So one of the things you were talking about was your first store campaign that you guys are working on?
Yes.
So this is something I'm curious about. Coming from here in Utah, we have a shit ton of fur farms, but very few furriers. And the last one that we had a major active campaign on before it closed down, I'm not joking. I probably went there, all the time over like a 5-year period for 6 months every single day straight and never saw one customer.
Yeah, that's how it is with this store. I mean, I wish I could say I was there that often, but they don't. From what I've heard, but I can't they're a private company, but I think they do some of their business like shipping and going on to cruises and things of that nature. So I don't think the bulk of their income is based on foot traffic into the store.
Hold on, they sell on the cruises? Like they go on cruises and then sell the
furs like
on
a
the
little
cruise?
like fur pop-up shop or something. But I
Who
can't
would buy a fur on a cruise?
Rich
I
people.
know.
Maybe
Yeah,
on an
rich
Alaskan
people-
cruise. Rich people. Yeah, thank you.
So one little thing I'm working on to kind of chip away is there's a local news station, KSTP, and every year they have their meteorologist does a contest for the best Christmas lights, and the gift is $1,000 gift certificate to this Ribnick fur and leather. So I've written letters, made phone calls. I just sent out an official registered letter offering an alternative $1,000 gift certificate to the only vegan store in Minneapolis. And they're going to say no. They just keep ignoring me, not getting back. And I have the support of some other local groups. So that's going to be a little mini campaign, is to get them to drop their affiliation with the fur store.
Would it be a bad idea to publish, like I'm sure they publish who the winners are, right? And which home it was, because it's a light show, right?
Yeah, you're giving me some good ideas.
So would it be a bad idea to have a campaign of, as soon as the winner is announced, of giving them, an education of why they shouldn't redeem this $1,000?
That's actually a wonderful idea. Thank you. I'm stealing that. I don't want to. I don't want to get in too much trouble, though. I got to figure out a good way to do this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But no, it's and what I said in the letter is like, why all the money that you spend at this store goes into programs to help animals. So why would you not make this choice where even your average person, I feel, who's not an animal rights activist, I mean, doesn't feel comfortable with fur. I mean, it's like a fur and leather store. So, I mean, I've peeked in the windows. The merchandise just looks so cheesy and horrible. I can't imagine why anybody would want to shop there. But of course, I'm woefully biased against this place. So, but that's a really good idea. Is to educate the people who win or maybe I can do a great light show at my house and try to win the holiday light contest.
Just do it all on Saturnalia.
That's right. I don't celebrate. I don't even put up like a wreath or anything. I don't celebrate Christmas, but maybe I'll just do something really wild that I have to win. That'll be my platform to take down Ribnick fur.
It totally just reminds me of the fur store that we were talking about earlier. They had like this huge light display show across the street, and everyone in Utah pretty much comes down to see this light show.
Yeah,
during the winter. And so we were across the street, and we made a giant banner out of Christmas lights that said "Fur is dead." So I mean, just giving you some ideas, you could do something like that.
Great idea. I wish you lived here. It's hard sometimes. I mean, I get some good turnout, but it's hard to get. I don't know if it's a Twin Cities thing. It's hard to get a consistent. I mean, there are a few people, a consistent body of people who show up, but
I don't think it's a Minneapolis thing. I think it's just a thing in general. Mm-hmm. And I gotta be honest, I don't go probably. I mean, not nearly like I used to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I'm trying to actually focus more on one thing because, not to put down the Twin Cities. There's lots of great people here, but a lot of the animal rights community is about one that me and my friend really got just so mad about was a local organization was having a sprouting workshop. And we were like, if more people go to a sprouting workshop than go to this protest, we're going to lose our shit. Because it's just this kind of emphasis on, the lifestyle aspect of being vegan.
Every vegan potluck.
Yeah. So I usually just, that's not where I want my resources to go. So I just, I'm hoping a consistent campaign will get more people out on the streets. I mean, I don't know what actually is going to close a store like this. There was a few years ago, there were two young gentlemen who were protesting the store every single day from open to close. I mean, they were like teenagers. They didn't work. It was during the summer, so they could do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh! And they eventually got taken to court for disturbing the peace, but it was thrown out because they were just screaming. They weren't using megaphones or anything, so they were like charged, and then the charges were dropped, or they were found guilty, but it was overturned. And I'm like, man, if that didn't work, what can I offer, the animal rights history as far as a campaign that is going to bring this store to get it to close down. So, but I'm working on it.
Not to be like a bearer of bad news on this one, but like the first store that we were talking about was called Blanc. And there was consistent campaigns against it for about 15 years. They had lockdowns, they had their windows broken, they had their locks glued. They had consistent protests for months on end every single day. We had home demonstrations.
Yeah. All
And-
that has happened with this store.
and nothing worked. They just went out of business for some unknown reason.
We think they died.
Well,
We think they died, honestly.
Honestly, like
if
no
they
joke.
if this store goes out of business, I'm taking credit.
And it's one
I
of those
don't
things.
care for what reason.
we were once told. I mean, we had like when we started doing home demonstrations there, the owners actually found out where we lived through court documents and started coming to our house too. Like it was that like personal.
Wow. So what would they do in
Well-
front of your house? What would they say?
Well, actually,
They'd throw
the
bricks through
owner
windows.
tried throwing a plant through my window once.
Wow.
A potted plant, yeah. we laugh about it now, but
Yeah, no, it's like I don't like who I've thought about that. Wow, what if someone came to my house to protest? But I'm like, but I'm the good one.
yeah. I mean,
Everything I do is right and just.
we tried everything. We were going to start following them grocery shopping and everything, but then we found out that would be against the law and considered stalking.
Yeah, I think we
But-
were looking into taking out billboards.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
all sorts of stuff.
at some point, some of those people just do it as personal, like I'm going to do it just as a fuck you, even though I'm
Yeah.
losing so much money.
Yeah, that's this is where I am now. Is just like the only power it seems like I have sometimes is just to annoy people, and I'm pretty good at it. If that's what I have, then even if it's once a month or whatnot, maybe I could just wait it out for them to go out of business. But I feel like I'm not ready to give up yet.
So, oh, sorry.
I was just
No.
gonna say, did you want to kind of talk about what's going on with Walter Palmer?
Yes. Yeah. It's so hard to know what to say. Yeah, I wanna talk about why I think that's an important issue. I am not in any way trying to reach him through the internet or anything like that. I'm simply talking about a social issue. So I just feel like I have to put that out there. I think Jordan might have read the piece that I wrote about this, but I do want to talk about it as well. The funny thing is, considering just lately being embroiled in a legal issue related to the protest, is in the whole scheme of my activism and the things that I feel most passionate about. Of course, I was upset, and I think. I'm opposed to hunting, but I mean, trophy hunting. I even had a hunter who I went to graduate school with contact me, and say what he thinks should happen to Walter Palmer. And he's like, I'm a hunter. And he's like, what that guy did is not hunting. It's rich people playing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, well, I appreciate it. That's good coming from a hunter.
Mhm.
But I kind of felt like, okay, this issue really got people who aren't activists. I've met women, predominantly women, who they've never been to a protest in their life, but something about this, the murder of Cecil got them motivated. And I think that's wonderful, that it really got the global community thinking about the lives of other species in a really sensitive way that brought people out of their comfort zones and to the streets. And I'm like, well, that's something that I want to support as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as, there is a part of me though, and I state this in the article, that's like, well, I would be at the protest, and I would, somebody, I guess, at one of the protests thought it would be funny to do like an old gag or an old joke where you order pizza and get it sent to someone's house, and then they have to pay for it. Well, this guy's walking around at this protest with like pizza and soda, And he's like on his phone and he's all confused. And I'm like, I got to talk to him. I feel bad for this guy. So I'm like, I think this might have been a joke because no one here ordered pizza. And I think it's one of the, like, this is a protest. And I think maybe somebody thought that they would be funny and get a pizza ordered. And then, like, the people at River Bluff Dental would have to pay for a pizza or 3 pizzas, I think it was. So he's like, if it's a joke, which it was, he's like, it's really more of a joke on me and my boss. So I'm like, well, I would buy them from you, but I'm assuming they're not vegan. He's like, no, they have pepperoni on them. So I went and made an assumption that these other people I was protesting with were not vegan or even vegetarian. So the only good that came out of that is they got a discount on these pizzas. And the guy's trip wasn't completely a waste of his time.
Mm-hmm.
But it just kind of, and I remember I was sitting with another activist who's vegan, and someone opened up the pizza box, like, hey, you want some pepperoni pizza? And she's just like, no. And actually, can you eat it over there? It's kind of upsetting to look at that. I don't want to look at your pepperoni pizza. And it just really hit me, like, how I appreciate them being there. So let me get that out. But I don't get how people so passionate about one lion could be so dispassionate or indifferent to the lives of the millions. I think it's in the millions of pigs who are slaughtered just in the U.S. for, pepperoni.
And some of these people were coming from out of the state too, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Some of them were coming from Texas, from Florida. Now, some of them were vegan. But it really just kind of, it really got like all these issues kind of revved up in my mind about, well, this shows me more than ever that my focus needs to be not here because other people care about this. I want to go where the majority of people don't care,
Mm-hmm.
which is a fur store or a lab at the University of Minnesota where somebody is a vivisector there is addicting monkeys to crack. I want to go to the places where not nobody, but it's seemingly nobody cares. If there was a store that opened like Walter Palmer's hunting trophies, a store like that, people would be protesting it. There would be outrage. So I really just felt like, I don't know if this is a place I want to spend my time as much as, and then, the stories came out that this is all documentable, that, Walter Palmer, although he admitted no wrongdoing, his insurance paid out $127,000 to a patient and an employee of his who he verbally harassed and then sexually, like, fondled her breasts, fondled her genitals when she was in the dental chair. So I'm like, wow, there's a lot going on here. And this is, then I find, okay, so then he also got in legal trouble for poaching a black bear in Wisconsin. And there's pictures of him posing proudly with it. And I just was kind of like, man, this is so symbolic of just so much that is wrong with how the world functions, where people can commit awful acts of violence against, fellow humans, against other species. But if you have enough money, you get to, and this is old news, we all know this is how the world works, but you get to just callously walk away from it and not be held accountable. So for me, it was important to get at least one piece of writing out. And I actually think there's a lot more I've learned through the Palmer protests, just about how, yes, he is one man and Cecil was one lion, but their lives and Cecil's death really represent a lot more than just the surface killing of an individual animal. Also at the protests, I heard a lot of, when I finally lost my shit over this, people kept saying, I actually have it on video because I was filming a cop. And, I heard a lot of people saying, oh, I don't want to beat up on fellow activists, but I got to be honest. All lives matter. If we were, Black people, we wouldn't get in trouble. They get to do shit, they get to do whatever they want. And the police let them do whatever I know. And I'm like, and I let it go for three different times people said it. All lives matter. All lives matter. And I'm like, just let it go. Because I've had some, I have a court case coming up where I was arrested. I think I told you this last time at the Mall of America. It's been almost a year. I still haven't gone to trial yet.
You're still on that thing?
Yes. And they wanted to extend it to January of next year, but I'm like, I'm going to be teaching. I didn't want to get a speedy trial, but I never thought it would take this long. So I finally just lost it. And I'm like, if I hear one more person talk about how Black people have it so easy in this country, that's the whole reason Black Lives Matter exists.
A campaign, yeah.
Yeah, the reason they work with the police works with Black Lives Matters is if you have 1,500 people at a protest and you don't want things to get out of hand, you have to the police have to show that they're working with you. If you have 5 people standing in front of a dentist office, 5 people are very easy to gain control of. I'm like, this has nothing to do with race. And if one more person implies that people of color have it easy in this country, I'm really just going to lose it. And I don't want to organize with I don't want to be here with you anymore if I hear it again. And I had to give this lecture. And then one person, everyone else just kind of ignored me, but one person apologized and, tried to assure me that she's not racist. And I'm like, well, yes, you are, because we're all racist. So, so don't lie. I'm like, you need to be, and I'm not an organizer with the group, but I support them. And I'm like, you just need to be informed because your perception is just so wrong. And I don't think there's one person who organizes with Black Lives Matter who would say it doesn't say only Black Lives Matter. But it's saying that it's not a default observation that you would make when you look at how the world works and how people of color are treated. So it's sad that we have to remind you of this fact. And I realized in these moments during the Palmer protests as well, how sheltered I was because the people I write with, the people I do activism with are all very aware. We all have our issues we need to work on to be better people, but they're all very intersectional thinkers where, they consider race and ability and environment and sexism and all these things. So to kind of be thrown into this mix where people don't have that thought process yet was also a very telling experience for me that, this is, I'm very secluded in my small little community of people who think the way I do. I think I wouldn't be able to, I would feel guilty if I didn't eventually say something about it. So yeah, that's another just interesting experience that I've had with I guess call it the Justice for Cecil movement. But I really feel like once you're dead, it's hard to get justice because your life is gone.
Yeah.
But I still hope that people, don't forget what happened and that this is indicative of a bigger issue. It's bigger than one person or one lion. I mean, one human or one lion, excuse me. Cecil was a person as well.
It's interesting when you talk about when that person was like, oh, well, I'm not racist. What I think a lot of people who don't do like this self-reflection or aren't in a community that is, really examining these type of issues, that we embrace the acknowledgement and the finding out in yourself of looking at, your unperceived biases and openly talking about it and not trying to hide it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I'm willing to say, like, yeah, we all have, to say I am, I don't see color, which I'm says without a smirk on their face is like, so you just hatched out of an egg.
Yeah. And like, I think a lot of people don't realize how warm the community actually is to that introspection, where it's, it's okay, and we're inviting, and we're all just trying to be better. It's when you try to react in that way that, it shows the negative and shows the unwillingness to learn and move forward and be a better person.
Exactly. And that's why I feel like it was a good opportunity. And I'm not the one, I'm not, I kind of also feel like, oh, here's this, middle-aged, I don't know if I'm middle-aged. I don't know what middle-aged is, but I'm going to say this middle-aged white woman talking about race. But there was no one else. I was actually the best person for the job in this situation. So, that's what I think is good about or protesting with people who aren't, part of the scene that I'm used to, is it opens up an opportunity. I don't know if people listen, but it opens up an opportunity for other types of dialogues that are unexpected.
So what really brought you with this whole thing, the whole murder? What brought you to spur you to want to go to action? Because like when I heard about it, my first thought was, well, this happens every fucking day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So like what about it made you want to really just step up in the first place? Was it kind of like the rage that you were seeing all else and you thought it was good to bring that in and kind of...
Yeah. I mean, I think you nailed it right there. It really was, okay, people are giving a shit about something, about an animal, a non-human animal, and they're willing to do something about it. And that's what, like, I feel like a lot of my life is that's what I try to get people to do, is to do something about the things that they don't think are just in a live action way, not just signing a petition on Facebook, but like maybe I'm old school, even though I've only been in the movement for about 6 years. Like maybe I'm a throwback where I still just want to take to the streets, use First Amendment rights when they work. Sometimes they're challenged, or at least they have been in my case. And I think I felt like I live in Minnesota. I live in Bloomington. I have to be there. Mm-hmm. Like, what kind of activist, like the other, the animal rights groups in the community kind of seem to lose interest. And I understand, like, they have specific campaigns they're working on. They have other things they need to do. So I'm like, man, there are people coming up here from other states. I feel a moral obligation or an ethical obligation to have somebody or be one of a few people from Minnesota who are showing up to this. Mm-hmm. Even though, like you said, I think many people who are, vegan and they've done activism before have that same reaction. Like, does any of this surprise you? This kind of stuff happens all the time. I remember when it first happened this summer, I wasn't in town. I was actually at the AR conference, and people were posting memes like, here's a picture of a chicken. Here's a picture of a pig and a cow. Like, these animals want to live or wanted to live just like Cecil. And I saw that kind of push. Like, can we use this as some kind of like catalyst to get people to look at other animals differently? And in my experience, which has been a wild ride with the Palmer protests, I know that the conversation came up a lot. People handled their outreach differently. There was one gentleman there, and he's just really like, he's passionate, but he was getting up in people's faces like, how can you eat like a ham sandwich and protest? You know, he was like right in there, you know, putting it out there for people. And actually one young gentleman who just came for the protest, he went vegan from this. You know, awesome. He made that connection. And other people, you know, were offered resources if they didn't go vegan, you know, were offered resources like, can you just for a moment think about, you know, the other animals who suffer, and in a sense, you know, I don't know, maybe I'll be critiqued for saying it, but in some ways Cecil had it much better than the animals the average person eats on a daily basis. He got to live free for a while. What did he live to be, 13? Is it? I think
so.
Yeah, he got to spend some time with his family. And considering how other species are treated, like, that's a fucking good life. And I could say that on the show. I forgot if that's like that's pretty good, you know, like, all things considered, Cecil had it made.
Yeah.
But it's just that disconnect. That's the other thing with this. The disconnect has been so sharp, that I've observed. And I even noticed myself at the protests, like, trying to get people going in and out of the clinic to care. And the one time when they shut up and don't know what to say, because it's like, oh, get a job, get a life, you know, you're losers, you're this, you're that. But when you say, do you know Walter Palmer sexually assaulted a woman in that office? And there are public documents that give all the details of what happened. When you say that, people don't know what to say. Because how do you defend that? But to say, oh, but you can easily say, oh, it was just a lion. But, you know, it's frustrating because there was a time in our not so distant past, and that still happens today in certain areas of the world, and not just, you know, I'm talking the Western world as well, where the attitude is, it's just a woman. Who cares what happened? So that's kind of a speciesist element of my protesting at River Bluff, but Dental has been to feel like compelled to remind people, like, oh, he's bad to humans too, in order to get them to care, and hopefully to stop going to him. And I don't know if it ever made the news, because it was probably not the answer they wanted, but somebody asked me, well, what do you want to see happen? And I said, you know, the ideal, like, I'm going to give my ideal of what would happen is, you know, as someone who follows and believes in anarchist principles, I don't want to say, oh, I think Walter Palmer should be extradited and sit in a jail cell for the rest of his life. This is the ideal. It's not going to happen. The ideal is he goes through some kind of accountability process, based in transformative justice, and his business is defunded. He does not have the financial means anymore to engage in violent hobbies, or he goes through a transformative justice process and makes a conscious decision to never hunt again and to never abuse a woman again. Like, those are the two things that I would want. The most viable one, however, is that he goes out of I think his wife has money or something, but is that he goes out of business, and he, like, when they asked, I said, I want to defund his violent lifestyle. You know, never mind all, the law is just so pointless, and I think it's just so inept, especially when it comes to helping animals, that to then push for more law, I think, is an exercise in futility, to use a cliche.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to say, because it's catchier to say extradite Palmer than to say, well, have him go through a transformative justice process wherein he starts to love all the animals of the earth, or something that sounds really hokey and fake. So I stick with, I think his violent lifestyle should be defunded, is the more realistic, goal.
But it is so much easier to say the state should be responsible to making sure that we're all good human beings.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. The state already called him out, and he paid $2,900, and then he went on, he still had enough money to go to I just can't imagine. I mean, you must have a lot of money, not just to be able to go to Africa, but to pay $55,000. Not even to hunt, but to engage in this. I really like what that hunter said. It's like the playground for rich people.
Yeah.
$55,000 to go out and play for a little while, but their version of play winds up in a dead body, is how I look at it.
Mm-hmm. What's really interesting about this whole thing, and I have to take, my hat off to you, is me personally, I would not handle myself well in front of those other, people that are protesting who are just not receptive. So
yeah.
it takes a special, kind of disposition to be able to do that. So, and I know myself, I'm not good in those situations.
You're reminding me of the gentleman I was mentioning, who is just, people were like afraid of him. And I'm just like, he's not going to hurt you. He's just going to get up in your face and let you out on hypocrisy.
And for me, it's one thing to be working in intersectionality and working on different issues and working with people who aren't vegan. But when it's a non-animal rights issue, I'm totally okay with it. But when it's animal rights, I'm like, you got to be on fucking board. Like, yeah. But what I was going to say is like, one of the things that has brought it to me is that, I don't know if you're familiar with the show Radiolab.
I am not, no.
It's an NPR show that they do and podcast, and just the last episode that they released was all about these type of hunts that they do in Africa. And they've been doing it for a long time. It just coincided with this, and they kind of brought it up. And they usually do a great job on all their shows on, approaching it from a very, data-driven things, very scientific. It's very like mind engaging. On this one, they focused on how these hunts supports conservation, and didn't once really bring up the idea of how much bullshit that is.
Oh, absolutely.
And that it makes my blood boil even more so than this, because it's just so much fucking misinformation that they should know so much better.
And and that's like a perfect point, because it's always about money. Mm-hmm. And it's the reason that as much as the extradition of Palmer was not my cup of tea, it's why, from the last news I heard, is the government of Zimbabwe is not going to extradite because they don't want to lose the funding. They don't want to scare off hunters. Yeah. And that brings money into the country. So I think it's really, inappropriate or not good journalism, I guess, for NPR to not give another side of this, of that story. And that's the common thing we hear with hunting in general. It's about overpopulation, although I've read and I have no reason not to believe that, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service breeds deer. Mm-hmm. So that, if you look at their website, they say that they are funded by people buying hunting licenses. If people weren't hunting, they would not be able to exist as a governing body. So this is a business. Mm-hmm. And that's what the whole thing comes down to. So again, in the article I wrote, I'm just like, this is about capitalism as well. and the whole conservation myth is very frustrating.
Yes. Well, and what's so hard is just like what you're saying is that they don't want to do anything because it will restrict that money coming in, but they're not getting an alternative form of any economic stimulus. Like there's nothing else.
Right.
It's just the bastion of capitalism failing.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's and it was kind of nice. One thing that I saw come up in a Cecil group that I'm just no longer a part of, I just couldn't handle it anymore, was someone posted, and it was a great idea and a great thought, but everyone ignored it, was, okay, so now let's start looking at some of the, human rights violations going on in Zimbabwe. Let's now can we show some support for this issue? And no one cared. It was like, oh, I don't, that's not something that seems relevant to this issue, although, any form of oppression, I believe, does not exist, which is an original thought. It doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
But most people just seem disinterested in opening up this dialogue for what else can this one little instance mean? What are all the, I guess, the different points of impact and all the, the shrapnel, pardon the expression, that, how can you pick up all these pieces and say, how does this all come together? This one story of this one murder is so, I put my academic hat on for a minute, just whoa, I need to unpack this, man, and get all the different threads going into this story. It's about, my article is titled "A Symbol for Everything Wrong." Mm-hmm. It seems like this is just a very it's a story with a lot of possibilities of places, strings to follow to the other forms of oppression that are connected there.
I think one of the hard things that we face as activists in these type of situations was people that aren't looking at a lot of these issues. It's easy for them to see the fix to this murder. Don't let rich people do these hunts. And when you talk about all the other tragedies happening in the world, there's no easy fix for them. There's no easy fix to human rights violations. There's no easy fix to racism. There's no easy fix to sexism that they can, package in their mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just, and some people don't even see it. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, the kind of, I realize I've been kind of cloistered in this little world of, vegan intersectionality, where, there really are people who think, why are women still complaining in the United States? Why are Black people complaining? We have a Black president. And it's just, I wonder, is that how the majority of people think? And that just might be the case. And that's a little scary to me.
It's really hard to solve a problem when we have to put our efforts into convincing people it's a fucking problem to begin with.
Yeah, that's really well said. So first step, convince people there's a problem. And most people don't, just don't want to. They don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Well, earlier you were talking about some of the legal challenges you were facing. You said you could talk about some, couldn't talk about others. Have you kind of stepped on the ones you can talk about already?
Yeah, I mentioned Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say. Black Lives Matters event. That, again, that's coming up. I also, a group and I were engaging in neighborhood outreach at the home of two vivisectors who live together. And, that's a case where we did everything right. We worked with a lawyer, a legal observer. We got the go-ahead by the police. Mm-hmm. The police officer is not even denying it. He said, yeah, I told them there's an ordinance that's unconstitutional, so as long as they don't trespass on these people's property, they're okay, which we never did trespass because they have cameras going. If we had trespassed, that would be out there. So there's kind of some success through the help of the community, I hate taking money from the animal rights community, but 7 of us were given restraining orders, and we fought them. It cost $322 for each person to fight it, and we even heard the lawyer for the vivisectors. We overheard him in court saying, "Oh, they're so stupid. There's no way that they're ever going to win anything in Stillwater, Minnesota." But 5 people had the restraining orders lifted, which was excellent because they had only engaged in one documentable protest in that area. And the law reads more than one. So the only 2 that they can actually say were at more than one were me and my co-organizer. So we got, I think, how long is it? A 2 years, a 2-year restraining order. And then we're being brought back to court in February for criminal, it's like breaking the ordinance.
Mm-hmm. Is it
targeted residential picketing?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. And I actually have some faith, maybe foolishly, that we can be found not guilty, because we really did, we honest, not that it means much coming from me, but we honest to God had the okay of a police officer.
As long as it's honest to God.
Yes, exactly. So I'm like, we did what we were told we could do, and again, they tried to shut down the police officer during the restraining order thing, but in the criminal case, he's gonna admit it. He's gonna say, "Yeah, we told them it's unconstitutional if you don't trespass," and then the male the vivisector husband said he had to go down to the police station and re-educate them on the laws in this part of Minnesota. So
it's super funny because Jordan was arrested for the exact same thing, and it took over 2 years to resolve.
I think it took 7 years. I can't remember how long
it was
took.
ridiculously long, though.
What was the outcome?
I won.
Excellent.
I think there was about 24 people, and some people took non-cooperating plea deals, and
for an infraction, right?
Yeah, they didn't really have anything.
Yeah,
but
it just
I was in it for the long run, and the people that they split us up into different trials.
Yeah.
I happened to be the only one that was found guilty originally, and then I kept proceeding, and I eventually got it thrown out.
Good for you. That gives me hope.
The judge pretty much said, "If a duck's a duck," or whatever, but they didn't. I don't know what that saying is, but he said that the prosecutor didn't prove it.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I hope I have some kind of success story.
What sucks about those stories, and it's the same thing you're facing with your other, is that so many people don't have the resources to be able to continue to fight this stuff in court.
And that's what's so frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for people donating to a fund, we would not have been able to fight this, and it actually was worthwhile. It actually worked that 5 people, I'm me and my co-organizer were that was a successful day, even though the restraining order stuck. And it was, of course, I'm going to say it was BS, but anyway, that we would get, just as an example, we all noted that before our trial we were being heard, a woman talked about how she wanted a restraining order against her husband, who had done really vile things to her, and she explained them, in the courtroom. And I just kind of was how do these 2 people hear this and say, we're going to use this same system to get a restraining order again? A restraining order when we've never even, there was no trespass, no harassment. It was a protest, a moving. They even admitted we you kind of have to stay moving.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how do they use this same system in good conscience, saying they're terrified of us? And like they've been protested for off and on for 20 years, but we're the scariest group yet. And I'm like, they're not scared. They're annoyed. And the really funny thing is they had a petition. So they have a big $1 million house on a lake. So they got it. They're like, well, we went to our neighborhood and people in our neighborhood don't want these people here, but it's a fairly condensed area. They had 5 signatures. And they gave us the names of the people. That's how scary we are in our evidence folder.
Because if you're really scary, then
give them your neighbors. That's so like you have so many, and we actually had we don't have it on film or anything. We had 2 of their neighbors be like, "Oh, we can't stand them. Don't move, or like don't walk around the neighborhood. Just go stand in front of their house." And we're like, "Oh, we can't do that." So like you had 5 people. That's all you can muster. I think that says a lot about how these people are viewed and the true extent to which they claim, they have to claim that they're scared or they wouldn't get a restraint. If they just said, these people kind of annoy us, there would be no cause for a restraining order. But to say we are terrified, this and this is we see no proof, but we see strange people showing up at our house. We never get their names or a photo, or we never call the police, but we know strange people are showing up. It all kind of adds up to this kind of ruse about, their level of fear about us.
Mm-hmm. It makes me kind of chuckle in my head because it's like, oh, well, we're rich, so we can use the power of the state against you.
And that's exactly what it is. I mean, I don't know. I think I did a half-hearted search to find out like where these targeted residential picketing laws exist. And, I guarantee it's always in wealthy neighborhoods where rich people are behaving badly in some way or another.
And, I say power, I really mean to say violence because their power isn't just pure violence.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there's that. And then, yes, what I'm calling a peccadillo with, related to the Walter Palmer issue. I can't get into details, but I can say what's public record, and I've been charged with felony property destruction at his place of business. But I have not even had a pretrial yet, so that's all I'm going to say about that.
That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Well, I sincerely hope your pretrial goes well.
Thank you. I'd love to come back and talk once this is all over because I have a lot to say.
I would absolutely love you to. And if you want a little bit of hope, I had 5 felony charges dropped at pretrial once.
Ooh, you're making me feel really hopeful.
It's not common, but
I'm going to be pissed. I'm like, I'm going to say, but wait a minute, why me?
But I sincerely hope you're the best in all of these. I mean, having one charge and dealing with it is stressful enough. Having multiples, including a felony, it can wreak havoc on your mental well-being.
It is. And even though I know that I am all good, it's hard to read an article. Like I've stopped, but it's hard to read something about myself. And I feel like it makes you feel like a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh
yeah,
my God,
seriously.
ooh, gross. Like she sounds like a scary, like, no, it's me. And I have to remember, no, it's me. It's not whatever they've,
The media doesn't ever get it right either.
No. It's a headline. They just want a headline.
Exactly. It's all clickbait stuff now.
Stay away from the comment section.
Oh my God.
No,
yes.
I believe me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on. How can people help support everything you're doing I know you said you hate asking for money, but in these situations, people need it. How can they maybe help donate to your legal fund?
A lot of nice people have asked. And at this point, I'm holding off. But I don't know. There's really nowhere they could go right now. I just think what I would ask for people to do, like wherever they are, is to just keep protesting. whatever is in their area or they feel passionate about, to just keep going out there. That's I have a fur airport demo and a fur demo coming up on the 17th, and I'm going to try to cash in. For all you people who've been offering to help me, thank you. Here's what you could do. Come out to this protest. And right now, that is the best thing that people can do, is not to stop acting on conscience. So,
well, send us the details on those upcoming protests. We'll put them out there. Maybe, hopefully, get some people.
I definitely will. Thank you.
So, we end every episode saying "fuck, shit, damn." Would you mind saying it for us this week?
Of course. Fuck, shit, damn.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I mean it when I say fuck, shit, damn.
Well,
all right. Thanks, guys.
Have a wonderful night.
You too.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
This week you heard
Glasgow by Mogwai.
Right now you're listening to
Noctuary by Bonobo.
iTunes. Hey, I gotta give a big thank you. We had quite a few more people go in and give us some ratings. Unfortunately, no reviews. Reviews help a lot, but so do ratings, so thank you. If you haven't done it yet, please consider, showing your support for this free content that you just consumed by rating and reviewing us on iTunes.
If you review us on iTunes, we'll read your review on air.
For sure. So do it now. And if you've already done it, again, thank you. But, still someone's device. Grab your grandma when you're visiting her and be like, Grandma, let me show you about podcasts. Rate and review us real quick. Your grandma will appreciate getting this amazing, wonderful content. And hashtag it with Ghost Review, and we'll get a chuckle at it.
We'll read those too.
Yes.
If you haven't yet liked us on social media, do so. We often talk about things that we don't talk about on the show. And by often, like I say every time, that's pretty much every day. So be our friend. Follow us, like us,
and obey.
Conform. Consume. Obey. Conform. Consume. Obey. Conform. Consume. Obey. With comedy, you have to either go long or go short. You fucked it up.
Shit damn.
You fucked it up. Come on.
Shit damn.
Which Side Podcast is hosted and produced by Jordan Halliday and Jeremy Parkin of the Which Side Media Collective, with web design by Jordan Halliday and sound design by Jeremy Parkin. Booking by Mari Halliday. Theme music by Commandantes. Go to whichsidecollective.org to check out the other shows in the collective. As always, fuck shit damn.